This morning I was in the burn unit making my rounds as hospital chaplain here at Mercy today. And I got a page of a bronze alert. That means danger is lurking. And my supervisor, Phyllis Grasser, called me to let me know what was coming forth. So I made a beeline down to the emergency room, and I was waiting for victims of the Tree of Life Synagogue today. And throughout the day, as I was visiting patients, I would hear more and more as it unfolded, the news report, that it was a very special day for the Jewish people to dedicate someone to God. And life was appalling over that place and its people. And I thought to myself the words of Rabbi Harold Kushner: suffering in and of itself is meaningless. We give our suffering meaning by the way in which we respond to it. As Christians, we are all called to be Christophers, light bearers, light bringers. Not only does God's light of his revelation shine on Christian believers, God's light shines in us, among us, and through us. What amazing grace that is. And nothing can eradicate that. Then I was thinking, we're celebrating All Saints Week this Thursday. One of the great characteristics of all the saints is they were nonviolent people. Nonviolent people. I got a call this week and asked by a family member if I would do a memorial service during Thanksgiving week of a man who was living in Florida. And he was 65 years of age and he was cremated. And his one brother asked if I would do it during Thanksgiving week because most of the family lives in Pittsburgh. And he was telling me about his brother's hardships, struggles, difficulties in life. That his brother was, in the words of the poet Dante, his brother was lost in dark wood. We all get lost, but he was lost in dark wood. The darkness of depression, the darkness of drinking, the darkness of divorce, the darkness of distance from God, the darkness of not believing, that their brother was in impenetrable darkness throughout his life. And it seemed, as life unfurled, it seemed to get bleaker and darker. And then he said, at the end of it, he said, "But Father, he's my brother. He deserves a Mass. He deserves to be remembered. He deserves to be prayed for. And he deserves our prayer and our love." And then I thought to myself, that's what tonight's readings are all about. We're all pilgrims on a journey. We all wander in pathways of sin. We get entangled and enslaved by our desiring, and even at times addictions. We get scattered and estranged and singed by sin. And we become alienated to God and live almost alienated from one another. And we're in exile. We're not where we should be. And God's grace calls us back home. Central to the Bible in the Old Testament are two great hinges. The exodus of the Israelite people for 40 years, enslaved in Egypt, and God set them free to the promised land of Canaan, of milk and honey that God would provide after their sleep, if they would but trust. And then the exile of Babylonian captivity, it wasn't fun to be in exile. It's not fun to be away from God. It's not fun to be away from the covenant. Oh, we may think it is, but that's an illusional life. That's a false life. And the prophets in the book of Psalms talk about calling us to come home from our exiles. The blind and the lame and the cripple and the mother with children and the lost and the weak and the vulnerable and those who are spiritually blind from God. God wants to heal our spiritual blindness, our moral blindness. What was the rap on the American bishops and the bishops throughout the world with the sexual abuse crisis? We turned a blind eye to sin. It was right before us and we didn't name it. And everybody was ensconced in anger because of that. We turned a blind eye to sin. No, we need to face sin head on. Emily Dickinson says, tell me the truth, God. But tell me it with a slant, because I can't look at my life with it in all truth. So that tells us that we're all sinners. We don't see as well as we could see. But Jesus is making his way to Jerusalem. And anyone who was over 12 years of age, you had to make a journey to Jerusalem 3 times, and especially during Passover, during the month, normally, of April. He was heading to Jerusalem, and there were caravans of people in this 15-mile journey to Jericho. It was the oldest occupied city, and there was rampant with people. It would be like the mob of a crowd of a concert. People were everywhere. Now, Jesus' reputation preceded him, and they just wanted to get a glimpse of him. Maybe to get a miracle, maybe to get a blessing like they do with our popes today. Now, through no fault of his own, Bartimaeus means son of Timaeus, son of honor. He's in dire straits. Now, in the Middle East, blindness was a common affliction. Many people were blind. He was in dire straits. He was vulnerable. He was an object of scorn. He was seen as a nuisance. He was an outcast in society. He had a disadvantage because he had a disability. And he's stuck. He can't move. He's lost. He can't see. And all this hoopla is going on. And Jesus, an itinerant preacher, is coming by. Now Bartimaeus can't see, but he shouts out for a healing. Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me. We call it today the Jesus Prayer. Many Christians pray this as the great prayer. Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me. Well, those who hear him, the bystanders, they're uncomfortable with him shouting out. So what's he do? He ramps it up more. Son of David, have mercy on me. He knew that from Jesus' house and his lineage from David, that he could bring hope to his hopelessness. It was a sign of the messianic reign that David would bring to Israel as its leader. Blind Bartimaeus was bold, wasn't he? He was courageous, he was persistent, and he was rewarded. There's nothing like when we're pushed to the edge, friends, and we have to make a decision in life. Blind Bartimaeus and Jesus the light meet together. Jesus asked him the $64 million question. What do you want me to do for you? Did you ever ask anybody that question in your life? I think we should do it on a daily basis. It could be very menial, get you a cup of water. It could be a visit. It could be making plans for Thanksgiving. It could be making a phone call. What can I do for you? very ordinary and very extraordinary. Bartimaeus, may I suggest, is the blueprint of the model of discipleship. He's not afraid to call on who will hear him. He has faith in Jesus, and he experiences Jesus' healing power, and Jesus gives him new sight. Now, biblical blindness, friends, was a lack of faith. That's what biblical blindness was. We don't see as clearly. We're jaded, if you will. We have our prejudices. We have our adult debris. And the sickness of the sin of humanity continues to make us blinder. But what were saints? Saints were people who returned from their exiles. Saints were people who would follow Jesus up the road even against opposition and adversity. What happens after Bartimaeus gets sight? He moves with ease and he has greater confidence. And he follows Jesus up the road, meaning he wants to come to know Jesus more. He's been awakened. I pray every day of my life to know more, to experience more, to become more, to see more. And unless I put on my spiritual glasses of faith, I will be jaded and see a blurred world of sin, suffering, sickness, and death. If I don't have clear vision, I won't see light, I won't see love, and I won't see life every day. I have to make sure I have my spiritual glasses on my soul to see the gospel view. I close. Lord, you've given us eyes to see the wonders you've made. From the smallest leaf to the tallest tree, your majesty is displayed. The Lord has given us ears to hear his message loud and clear. If we love God and all humankind, his kingdom will be near. The Lord has given us lips to speak his truth to all that we meet. Let us bring his peace and love to everyone we greet. The Lord has given us hands to do his work that must be done. Let us serve all humankind as taught by his only Son. The Lord has given us feet to walk, the path Christ walked before. The Christian path, it's hard to walk, but it's the only path that leads to heaven's door.